I consider myself a friend of Israel and a friend of the Jewish community. And that's a deep sense of heart connection that I feel. I'm the president of the Institute for Faith-Based Diplomacy, and one of our key objectives is facilitating strategic friendship between Israel and the Gentile nations. So we're talking both about those nations that come out of Christendom and those that are part of the Muslim world. As some of you on this webinar would know, I just returned from Israel, where I brought two Muslim leaders from India there, and we had two purposes. One was to orient them to Israel, because neither had ever been there. Secondly, was to begin to develop cooperative relationships with Israeli entities toward this project, in their case, of strategic friendship between Israel and the Muslim world, which I think we can say is going to be one of the challenges of the 21st century, considering that hostility toward the Jewish community in Israel is profound in the Muslim community. I think that while there may be meetings that happen between rabbis and sheikhs, for the most part, they are not the ones driving the narrative in the Muslim world. It's the Islamists. And the leading edge of recruiting of jihadis is hatred of Jews and Israel. And that's the reality that we're working with, and which my colleagues from India will be tackling as they wrestle with how to promote strategic friendship with Israel in the Muslim world. I think it's important to distinguish between the symptoms of the problem and the problem itself. And that's a key thing that we work on in our process of faith-based reconciliation. And if we think about anti-Semitism, it has many manifestations, but at root, it is a spiritual reality, because at some level, it makes no rational sense. And yet, not only is it real, but it's growing in today's world. So we're dealing with a spiritual reality that requires to deal with it a spiritual response. And I say that as somebody who spent many years in politics, so I have a very pragmatic side to me, but I also realize that we're dealing with an intensely spiritual problem. If you go back to the Torah in Genesis chapter 12, God says to Abraham, he who blesses you, I will bless, and he who curses you, I will curse. And it would seem that to be in a position of cursing Israel is not a very good place to be. And I would have to say that anti-Semitism is the principal form of cursing Israel. And one form of that anti-Semitism says to the Jewish community, you have no right to make a living amongst us. And we see that, for example, today in the BDS initiative, which is designed to financially strangle the state of Israel. A second form of anti-Semitism says, you have no right to live amongst us. And today we see that by attempts to eradicate the state of Israel. And not the idea of having two states living side by side, but rather eradicating the state of Israel. This is certainly the goal of Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran. So that's another form of anti-Semitism. Third, it takes on the form of saying, you have no right to live. And it says, who you are is offensive to us, and you have no right to live. And we see this emerging once again by attempts to destroy the Jewish community. So I'll just leave it at this, since I really, I have only 5 minutes, and I think I've probably used them up. So I'll stop at this point. But I'd say that in the whole task of developing strategic friendship with Israel, that both the Christians and the Muslims have a key role to play in the healing of Israel, because we have had an important role of creating the deep wounds that are there in the Jewish community and in Israel. I don't have time to talk more about the nature of those deep wounds, but that healing has to go on. And it's part of the whole process of strategic friendship between Israel and the Gentile nations. And I'll leave it at that.